To CNBC Indonesia Awards 2023 Best Digital Banks bersama saya Safrina Nasution. Di segmen ini kami akan membahas mengenai outlook perbankan di era digitalisasi yang semakin masif belakangan ini dan lantas bagaimana peluang-peluang yang dapat dimanfaatkan oleh perbankan ke depannya. Langsung saja kita akan tanyakan kepada Presiden Direktur PT Bank Amar Indonesia Tbk atau Amar Bank, Vishal Tulsian yang sudah hadir di studio CNBC Indonesia. How are you, Vishal?
I'm good, thanks, Safrina.
A pleasure to have you in CNBC Indonesia.
Pleasure to be here.
So first of all, I did really want to start with a very, very warm congratulations, a splendid performance you have during this 2023. But regarding to the ecosystem of digital banks, we have some data. At the end of September 2023, the value of digital banking transaction in Indonesia was recorded at a very spectacular level, 15,158 trillion rupiah, and this grows 12.83% year on year. So in your opinion, what makes digital transaction in Indonesia is so massive and growing in a spectacular level of growth?
So there are many factors. In terms of the demographics, in terms of the culture, in terms of the technology. I'll give you a brief background to connect that, why this matters. If you see banking as a historical, banking has been digitally very advanced since the time of ATM. ATM came in 1970s, and that was the game changer, which led to internet banking, eventually computerization, and then the internet banking. At the time of financial crisis, 2008, then came a new revolution, which is fintech. So last 10 years, this growth which we are observing, not only in Indonesia, but throughout the globe, largely is contributed to fintech. So there are factors which are present, like in Indonesia, you have a very young population who wants to try out new technology. They were given access to affordable smartphones, access to internet. So these were the factors on the demand side which was present. On the supply side, you had the e-commerce, ride-hailing services, and to facilitate the commerce, we had these fintech like us, digital banks like us, who facilitate all these transactions. And that has been rapidly growing in the last 5 years. COVID provided the push. Then the government policy of trying to have more of the non-cash transaction, that's providing the push. But you had all these factors present, which is leading to this growth.
So there are many factors, but that contributes to a lot of significant growth of digital transaction banking. Vishal, you started with Tunaiku, right? What year was that?
We were the first. 2014, at that time, word fintech wasn't prevalent.
So what did you see? What did you see back then? How do you see the future, and how do you actually, predict all of this would happen?
So it was not more of a prediction; it was more of a conviction that what technology should do. So the difference was this: so I was living in the western part of the world for quite a long time. When I look at the technology in western part of the world, what it does, it's linear improvement in the lives of the people. For an example, the people get technology, so they get the same thing in a better or more efficient way. But in this part of the world, we have a lot of financial exclusion. In terms of the financial inclusion is very low. So we believed that technology must impact lives, must improve lives. So that was the underlying philosophy, that how can we leverage technology to create some impact in the lives. That's how Tunaiku came into the fore, wherein when we saw in the market that the people are very underserved or unserved, that even if they have the bank account or they don't have the bank account, they don't have access to financial channel. And that's what our goal was, that can we provide them the loan at the time of their need? And can technology enable that? So that was the reason for Tunaiku.
Tunaiku was a peer-to-peer lending, right?
So Tunaiku is a digital lending.
Digital lending,
big data and machine learning based, using various forms of data, because the kind of target segment we have, they don't have credit file, they don't have credit history, they don't have many papers. How can you do
that
the
was the
risk
problem for
assessment?
Indonesian
That was the
people
problem.
and SMEs.
So we were solving that problem. Micro SMEs. Now, micro SMEs, they are like mom and pop shops, individual owners. They don't have the time to maintain the papers, nor they have the predictable income. And how do they get loan without any collateral? That was the goal to achieve.
Thank you for that. And anyway, when did you decide as a founder, as a president director, the milestone that finally Tunaiku became a digital bank, that is Amar Bank?
So one thing led to other. We started with Tunaiku. Then we saw that there is a huge potential. And in terms of connecting all parts of the economy, banking as a license was essential. So at that time, we purchased the bank back in 2014. Now, the trend which you see, the technology companies purchasing the bank, we did that back in 2014, December 2014. And that's how Tunaiku became the part of the commercial bank. We rebranded the name of the bank as Bank Amar.
Okay. And then what factors, in terms of digital transaction for banking, what factors can encourage further development in the adoption of digital banking transaction in Indonesian people in the future? How do you see it?
So there are two ways. One is which is going to be natural progression. And one where we, as an institutions, can do something about. So I'll first cover the first part. Natural progression would be demographics. You have more Generation G coming in. They are more digitally integrated, so there will be more push. More accessible smartphones will be there. Internet rates will be even lower. Access to remote areas will be there. So it will create a lot of more demand on the user side. And you'll have more services coming on the supply side. So these are the things which are naturally going to make the digital transaction go multifold. But which we can do is one thing, financial literacy.
Financial literacy.
This is one of the most underrated things, which usually is not taken care of. But there is a multifold impact. Why we don't take care because there is no immediate impact. But when you make any household, any individual financially literate, what it means is basic things. That how much, for an example, how should I manage my finances? How much loans should I take? Would I be able to repay? Those are the basic things. If you educate the public with these basic tools, then they become the part of the society which is going to contribute much more instead of getting over-leveraged. So that's what I would say is if we combine all these, the impact on the Indonesian economy will be huge.
Do you think Amar Bank existence will also catalyzing the financial literacy in Indonesian people?
Definitely. Because this is one of our main areas which we focus upon, where we have even created a separate portal for financial education, which we call it Swara, just for the financial education.
Okay, now let's talk about technology, Vishal. The use of Bank Indonesia fast system services, such as QRIS, is quite significant in the society, if you want to talk about financial literacy as well. What are actually Amar Bank's expectation for the company's development and role in digital transaction in the future?
QRIS is an excellent development. Both QRIS and BI Fast. Now, to see is that there are three things these payment infrastructure does. One is person-to-person transfer, one is person-to-merchant, and third is interbank transaction. So BI Fast does the interbank, and QRIS does person-to-merchant. So this has enabled many of the small shops, many merchants become digital. So number one, we have to see that how are we going to use it to increase the financial inclusion, because QRIS enables now for a very small warung owners in the remote areas to be able to collect digitally. If I were to think about the future, I would say that if there could be more unified system, wherein the person-to-person also gets connected. As an example, say I'm transferring to you, you're transferring to me, we have to do a bank transaction today, right? But can that QRIS type of system, which can be connected as an overlay on it, which can be, let's say, just an email ID and the money can be transferred, that is going to further increase the growth. So as an example, in India, something is known as UPI.
Okay, UPI?
Yeah, United Payment Interface. And that's what it does. And we can see that how the payment and the transaction has grown multifold in India. And those, I'm very sure that CRIS would lead to something more unified.
How do you see BIFS and also CRIS making a great beneficial impact for Amar's bank business?
So we see that we can reach to the customers whom we couldn't have reached earlier.
Okay.
Small MSMEs, they are in the remote areas. If we have to transfer money to them, yeah, and if they have to transfer money back, if they have to collect the cash, if there is a cash, we cannot deal with them. But with CRIS and BIFAS, it is possible to reach to them.
Sure. And now about the regulations, Vishal. The OJK, Financial Services Authority, wants banking to move on from the conventional banking or so-called conventional banking business. And for this reason, the Financial Services Authority, or OJK, plans to issue regulations regarding digital service for commercial banks. How do you respond to this direction from OJK? What kind of digitalization trends has Amar Bank implemented in the business process? But obviously you are a digital bank, but how do you actually respond to it?
Right. So fortunately, I would say this particular regulation will be mostly in past tense for us. What I mean, yes. So what I mean is that, so if you see our history, we are digitally born. We started with already the sophisticated big data machine learning models for mass lending. Then we became the first bank in the country, digital bank, to launch it on the cloud. We're the first bank which is fully on the cloud. Yeah. The first mobile-only bank which is AI-enabled. What it does is, I'll talk about later, that what it does is enable savings.
Okay.
So because we did all these things, so from the day one, we were not required to change any system from manual to digital. We built it digitally.
Okay.
So in fact, in this regulation, we are very sure that we would be able to help our counterparts, other banks, to share our knowledge, how to make it more digital. So means I'll be any of your viewer, if they would like to take our help, we'll be very happy to help them.
But from your view as a president director of Amar Bank, a digital bank, how do you see the ecosystem of digital banking in Indonesia? How do you map the competitor, the collaborator? How do you see it? Because if Financial Services Authority has this direction for digitalizations for banking, we know that some of the big banks in Indonesia, the Himbara, Himbara, also have been directing their moves going towards digital banking. How do you see it?
You know, many times I hear many banks using the word that they have to do digitalization, digital transformation. I think they do a little bit of disservice to themselves, because banks per se have been much more digitally advanced from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. You would remember the time when internet banking was there. Yeah, that is back in late 1990s or early 1990s. Mobile banking. All these technologies were there with banks long back. So banks have been quite digital. They keep the ledger, all the switching system and all are digital. So they've been quite advanced. I think the gap has been only the rise of the fintech post-financial crisis for some period of time, where the banks were busy with tackling the financial crisis.
Okay.
So I think this regulation is not going to be very difficult for any bank to implement, because the foundation is there with each and every bank in terms of being digital. They have to make it more digital. And as we see AI and all coming in, it will be even more important for everyone to adopt to new technologies.
And it's a necessity.
It will be a necessity.
It will
Correct.
be a necessity. Wonderful.